Hello BookTube. Today I'm going to be doing the mid-year book Freakout tag. I don't know who originally created the tag. I know it's a perennial yearly tag that makes the rounds. So I will just link Steve Donahue's video down below. And I echo some of his comments about some of the questions, particularly the later questions, are not what they could be. So hopefully there's a modified version coming out next year, or I'm kind of thinking of maybe doing a sort of bookish resolutions, mid-year check-in, end-of-year reckoning sort of tag idea for next year. So maybe I might make up something if Steve doesn't, or however it comes out or works out. So anyway, but let's get on with the tags. Question number 1. Best book you've read so far in 2020. Obviously, these questions are conditional because the year's only half over. There's still a whole nother year to go, or half of the year to go, and books may rise and fall in one's estimation as the months go by. So right now, the best nonfiction book I've read so far in 2020 has been Big Wonderful Thing, A History of Texas by Stephen Harrigan. And for fiction, I'm going to say it's The Sorcerer of the Wild Deeps by Kai Ashanti Wilson. I think it was really a magnificent short novel. Really got me back into fantasy after a several month long dry spell, although to be honest, my nonfiction readings for this year have been for the most part phenomenal. While my fiction readings haven't been, and I'll address that a bit later too. Other good fiction work I've read, Lie With Me by Philippe Besson and Mysterious Skin by Scott Heim. 2. I don't know why, but I thought there was going to be a worst book you've read so far in 2020. Okay, so even though I guess that could be like biggest disappointment, but I guess I'll wait until then for the worst. So number 2, best sequel you've read so far in 2020. The Shadow Saint by Gareth Hanrahan, I think, is the best sequel of the ones I've read. Yeah, The Shadow Saint by Gareth Hanrahan. Number 3, new release you haven't read yet but want to. The Napoleonic Wars, A Global History by Alexander Mikaberidze. Sorry if I butchered that pronunciation. Post Wall, Post Square by, let me check real quick, Christina Spohr. The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin. Sunny Days, although I'm not entirely sure remembering who wrote it. It's a history of the early days of children's television. Yeah, I think. Number 4, most anticipated release for the second half of the year. Let me go real quick to, now assuming of course the pub dates still hold up. That is entirely possible that many of these won't. But let's go to my Amazon orders and let's check out my what all I have pre-ordered. So that comes out in 2021. Phoenix Extravagant by Yoon-Ha Lee. This is a new, I think it's the beginning of a new series from Yoon-Ha Lee, who wrote the Machineries of Empire series, which I really enjoyed. And I'm really looking forward to this one. That comes out in 2021. The Blade Bone, Book 4 of the Khorasan Archives by Asama Zehnet Khan, which all of these come out in October. Oh, I hope I haven't already spent all of my money in October. The Fires of Vengeance by Evan Winter. It's the sequel to The Rage of Dragons, which I haven't yet gotten to. Really should. 10 Arrows of Iron by Sam Sykes. The Memory of Souls by Jen Lyons. This is the third book in the Chorus of Dragons series. And the two books I'm really looking forward to. Empire of the Black Sea, The Rise and Fall of the Mithridatic World by Dwayne W. Roller, which hopefully will be shipping sometime next month. Although it was supposed to come out like in May and then in June, and now it's been pushed back to July, so hopefully it comes out in July, because I really want this book. I have a huge thing for the Hellenistic world. And also a Dessert Person, Recipes and Guidance for Baking with Confidence by Claire Saffitz, which comes out in October. Definitely I'm really looking forward to that one. So that was all of the books that I'm most anticipating, most looking forward to. There's also Hella by David Gerrold, which, even though it's coming out like I think next week, but I'm counting it too. Okay, number 5, biggest disappointment, also known as the worst books I've read so far in 2020. I'm going to go with The Great Pretender by, I want to say it, no it's not. Oh yeah, I was right. The Great Pretender by Susanna Callahan. I read this for the BookTube prize and I just utterly disliked it. Utterly. For fiction, I'm going to go with The Refrigerator Monologues by Catherine Valenti, which, I mean, obviously this is like a third reread of that book, and I think I've finally given up that I'm not going to like that book. No matter how many times I read it, doesn't work for me. Which is annoying in the extreme. Number 6, biggest surprise. Honestly, that I really have fallen so hard in love with history. I mean, I've always really liked history, but it's just I have this massive passion for history that I have this shelf here and then this shelf here are my history shelves, and I have 3 shelves left, and I kind of sort of want to fill them all up. Like, I want to carve a much larger section for my library to devote to history. But as far as books are concerned, I guess maybe Lie With Me by Philippe Besson. I'm surprised I liked it as much as I did, given that Steve Donahue didn't particularly care for it. And when it comes to gay literature, I think I sort of agree with him more often than I don't. Um, Number 7, favorite new author. Debut or new to you? I'm going to go with Philippe Besson, definitely. Stephen Harrigan. Um, Sarah Broom. Definitely looking forward more to her work. I think that's all I can think of at the moment. Um, yeah, so we'll leave it at that. Okay, number 8, newest fictional crush. Okay, so this is one of the ones that I'm going to pass on because, I mean, for one thing, these are fictional characters. That's kind of creepy. 2, I don't do single crushes. I never have. When I was younger, I basically had like 4 or 5 crushes going at once. So, I never had that one infatuation that completely tortured me. Which is probably why when I read those romantic relationships or infatuations in which the main character is so utterly tortured by their feelings for this other person, I don't quite get it. Number 9, newest favorite character. I'm going to skip this one too. Because I don't really think any new character really has jumped out at me. Except for maybe, I guess, Philippe from Lie With Me. But I mean, a lot of what I've been reading has really been rereads or sequels, so yeah. A book that made you cry. I tend not. Oh yeah, okay, yeah. Lie With Me by Philippe Besson. I definitely, there's this letter at the end when everything about Thomas is sort of revealed, that it is very emotional. Also, the ending of Mysterious Skin, I think, almost made me cry too. A book that made you, or number 11, a book that made you happy. Me by Elton John. Definitely Me by Elton John. That book just really is a joy to read. 12. Most beautiful book you've bought so far this year or received? I'm going to pass on that one. 13. What books do you need to read by the end of the year? A lot. A lot. So I think I'm going to wrap this up with my goals for the rest of the year. So my goal for this year was to read at least 100 books, if not more. I think I'm in the late 60s right now. I think I'm like 68, 69. So I'm on pretty good track to read at least 100, probably getting closer to 120 books. I want to read more. I want to really sort of try to diversify my reading. I mean, I read a huge amount of science fiction and fantasy. I want to really, more on history, science, mathematics, other forms of nonfiction, literary fiction or realistic fiction, poetry. Just really read a bit more widely, and hopefully I don't get quite as burned out as I did at the end of last year and at the beginning of this year on just really gorging myself on one genre. I also, excuse me, would like to diversify my book buying. Last year I bought pretty much almost exclusively science fiction and fantasy. And this year I've moved, I've been diversifying. It's been mostly history though. So far, last year when I did my library tour, I basically did all of the history in one go. This year, that's not going to be happening. I've pretty much added at least a new shelf or 2 shelves, and it will probably continue to expand. Spoiler for June's book haul, it's going to be mostly history. I might have said I wanted to get other books, but it's going to be mostly history. I also want to pick up more literary realistic fiction, which is this shelf right here, or bookcase right here, which I will probably make good ways into filling that shelf up. And I also want to continue picking up science fiction and fantasy, although maybe not as to the degree that I have. Although that does put me back because there are a lot of science fiction and fantasy books I do want to buy, but yeah, budgetary constraints and all that. I'm going to have to really be more. I don't think necessarily have a plan, but maybe try to be a bit more equal. And I also would like to support more local independent bookstores rather than just getting all of my books from Amazon or Muse from a Libris. So anyway, but yeah, I think that's my bookish goals, my reading goals and collecting goals. I also want to at some point rearrange my library. I don't know if I'll do this relatively soonish or do it closer to when it's time for my 2020 library tour, which I will try to do in December. And then kind of do both a rearrangement and tour at the same time or something. I don't know. I'm kind of starting to ramble, so I will sign off now. And I will talk to you in a few minutes with my Writing Wednesday. Thank you, BookTube, and stay safe.